the person who has, I don't know, I didn't really have very well prepared remarks, but I want to say something that all the work you're going to see in a minute from the students, the work that the lab's doing, a very large part of that depends upon the contribution of all of our members. I like to joke that the lab isn't the space we have upstairs hidden in the library with no windows next to the microfiche, but it's the people. And so it is my pleasure to introduce someone without whom much of what you're going to see today would not have been possible, Quinten Steenhuis.
And my role this morning is really just to introduce the hidden stars of our lab, who are our students. So the lab is, as you might know, we actually have many different ways that we work as a lab. One of those ways is with David, myself, and Bryce, who are full-time employees. Another way is through the clinical program. And we have students who are spending about half of their time doing traditional legal representation in the clinic, and the other half of their time as innovators inside our lab. They're learning ways to take the things that they learn, the technical things that they learn in our inside the Legal Innovation and Technology Lab, and bring them back to the clinic in order to serve their clients better. And the last way is students can also sign up for a lab class where they're able to take some of the skills they learned from one of our seminars and use them in a more full way. And in all of those ways, the students are kind of the hidden stars of a lot of the work that we do. So I'm going to just let them tell you about all the wonderful projects that they've been involved in over the last year. And we're going to start with Morrissette, who's going to have the first presentation.
Hi, everyone. I am Morrissette. I'm the Lit Fellow for the Accelerator Clinic at Suffolk Law, which works with victims of housing discrimination. Our clients are also often recipients of housing vouchers. A housing voucher is a kind of subsidy that allows a housing agency to pay a portion of or all of the rent for an apartment that a recipient must find on the private market. When a person is first issued their voucher, they usually have 90 days to find a suitable home to rent to use the voucher on, or they may risk losing the voucher. However, people wait months or years on a waiting list to even get the housing voucher, and then they must find suitable housing within just 90 days. With the current housing crisis, this is not an easy task. Further, those who receive housing vouchers are likely to be discriminated against, making their housing search even harder. Unfortunately, despite the discrimination being illegal in Massachusetts, there's still a lot of stigma regarding housing vouchers and those who receive them. However, recipients are eligible to receive an extension to the 90-day time limit, but they have to keep track of their housing search to prove that they were actively looking during that time period. This can mean keeping track of many, many properties because recipients should keep track of every property they even contact over the internet. Yet the voucher recipients are just given a piece of paper to keep track of every property, or they're just left to their own method. There's no uniform web-based solution for recipients to use. That's sort of how this project came to be, finding a way to make a standardized guided form accessible by internet. In order to provide this free online service for housing voucher recipients to use, DocAssemble was used to create a guided interview that creates this organized chart at the end. Users have the choice to input as much information as they would like. They can save the form, go back and edit it. The form, once generated, can be downloaded as a PDF or an editable copy. It can also be emailed to the user or anybody else. DocAssemble, the tool used for this project, is a system to produce web apps so that users can create efficient and easy ways to use legal help. It is an open source technology tool, so there's no proprietary licenses or fees, and it's part of a growing community looking to provide legal aid. The system allows the app to ask a series of guided questions to generate a filled out PDF or Word document. A Weaver tool is used to generate code for the document, which can then be edited and personalized by the user to create an efficient and flowing app. For those who are interested, there is a DocAssemble conference tomorrow at Suffolk Law. One of the biggest tasks of this project was to allow the user to add an indefinite amount of properties to a single document. This was achieved by coding in a looping system where the user is shown this quick chart where they can edit the properties or add another. With this function, the user does not have to restart the form from the beginning each time they want to document a new property. The benefit of using this system is that it requires minimal technological skills and it is easily accessible on any internet device. It's also easy to give out to potential users because they just need the link to access the app. The app can be accessed on the go and it does not require the user to keep track of physical pieces of paper. The form can also be used by those without housing vouchers, such as those who need to keep track of their housing search for an eviction proceeding. Further, because it is web-based, it can be used with accessibility tools such as screen readers, making it a more functional option for disabled users. For the future of the app, we are working on creating multiple language versions to give out to a wider range of users. In working with various housing authorities and housing advocates, the goal is to get the link to as many people as possible to give them the choice to use an electronic recordation system. As the generation looking for housing now is more technologically capable, we hope many people will make this choice. The app has gone demonstrations to housing authority workers and advocates in Massachusetts, and there's now a live website that can be used by reaching the code. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Nini Sprinkle, and joining me is my colleague, Elicia Inman. Elicia and I are Lit Fellows in Suffolk's Family Advocacy Clinic. As Lit Fellows, our goal was to fuse legal innovation and technology with family law concerns, to build a tool to offer legal information to those who could not afford an attorney, legal aid organizations, and law school clinics, thereby expanding access to those who need legal services. To achieve this goal, Elicia and I chose to focus on issues associated with divorce.
Divorce can be complicated when you don't have an attorney and expensive when you do. Take a look at this flowchart, for example. The fact that this flowchart took longer to make than the actual tool is a testament to just how complex filing a divorce can be. So you can imagine that if you didn't know much about the law, it could easily get confusing to figure out which option is best for you. That is why we chose to do uncontested divorces, aka the green little avenue that you see. There are usually no disagreements about issues such as dividing assets or parenting time. Both spouses agree that their marriage is broken and cannot be fixed. They're also in agreement on things like dividing property, health benefits, and parenting time. Our aspiration is that the development of a minimal viable product specifically designed for uncontested divorces will pave the way for upcoming students to enhance our tool by including the remaining branches depicted in this flowchart. It's the notion that our tool will only evolve and improve from here on out.
The uncontested divorce tool we've created is aimed at helping individuals in making what would have been a pro se packet. A pro se individual is someone who is representing themselves in court without a lawyer. These individuals often lack legal expertise and may struggle to understand the complexities of the legal system. Our tool provides a user-friendly platform that offers screening questions to guide pro se individuals through the process of filing for an uncontested divorce in Massachusetts. By simplifying the legal process and offering clear explanations of the requirements and steps involved, our tool is easier for pro se individuals to navigate the divorce process and achieve a positive outcome. When it comes to getting a divorce, there are several options currently available. Hiring an attorney is the most common, but it can also be extremely expensive, which can be a significant financial burden for those families who cannot afford it. Legal aid and law school clinics are also options for those who cannot afford an attorney. However, these resources can sometimes result in longer wait times and limited assistance throughout the divorce process. Despite how complicated the divorce process is, many families still choose to represent themselves in court due to the financial constraints or lack of access to legal resources. This is where our uncontested divorce tool can help. By providing the user with necessary legal information based on their responses, our tool can help people try to figure out the complexity and reduce the financial burden associated with divorce. We are not trying to replace divorce attorneys, but we do believe that everyone should have access to legal resources that they need, regardless of their financial situations.
With all that being said, I would like to introduce you to our uncontested divorce tool. Here is the introduction screen that starts by explaining to the user what an uncontested divorce is, and then lays out how the tool intends to help the user. Once the user agrees to continue, the tool starts to ask screening questions to help determine if the user qualifies for an uncontested divorce. If the user's responses do not meet the requirements, the tool will let them know right away. After the user is deemed eligible, the tool will proceed to ask general questions to gather more information about the user and their spouse. This is a screenshot of one of the general questions asking about the couple's military service. As you can see at the top, the tool provides legal information regarding the purpose of asking this question. We designed the tool this way so the user can not only answer the necessary questions, but also learn why they're being asked those questions. Once all the general information questions are answered, the questionnaire begins. As you can see, the tool offers questions regarding the user's marital history, children, and assets. The tool then starts to ask questions related to special requests. This step is crucial for users to learn not only about the special options available to them, but also to see if they qualify. This is a screenshot of the tool asking the user all the right questions for them to help file an affidavit of indigency. Finally, the tool will produce a customized list of all the required documents that the user needs to file based on their responses. It will also determine which courthouse to file based on the address that was shared by the user.
Additionally, we use DocAssemble to create a guided interview to assist individuals in completing the necessary forms when filing for divorce. The first form is a separation agreement, which is required when filing for divorce in Massachusetts. The other form that we created was the parenting time agreement. Now, Massachusetts does not have a currently standardized form for parenting time agreements. However, other New England states such as Connecticut and New Hampshire do, and these were used to guide us in creating one that could be used in Massachusetts, which would then be used to guide discussions in probation and creating a mutual agreement that the judge could then sign off on. Now, this was all made possible with our involvement in Suffolk's Family Advocacy Clinic, with the help of our supervisors, Maritza Carmeli and Shannon Rand. We are able to build a legally accurate tool. We were also able to conduct user testing with other Family Advocacy Clinic students to ensure that every possible circumstance within the uncontested divorce space was accounted for. That is why we are not only proud, but confident of our uncontested divorce tool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Jessica Vandervort, and it's an honor to speak before you today. A little bit of background about me. I'm in the Legal Innovation and Technology, or LIT lab, and I'm working on accessibility. Before coming to law school, I had very little background in technology. I was an ancient history major, and I used to say that I preferred clay tablets over technological ones because they only crash if you drop them. So coming into the LIT lab was very new for me, but I have loved that being able to be in this program has allowed me to be a voice for the voiceless. My reason for wanting to do so is simple: my little sister. Born when I was 4.5 years old, she has not needed many accommodations in life, but I wish to change the world because she changed mine. So, a little bit about the difference between access to justice and accessibility. Many of the programs that you will hear about today speak towards access to justice. This simply put, is the ability to seek a remedy after an injury or a violation, or to prevent one from occurring. Essentially, it's the open door to law. The difference here between this and accessibility is that accessibility and accommodations seek to provide access or aid to this access for individuals who have cognitive or physical needs. Essentially, they have the open door but are unable to get through it. With that in mind, let's imagine that you've been called to court. You've been called as a juror, a party, a witness, an attorney, legal staff, or something else entirely. And you know that you are going to need reasonable accommodations. Perhaps you need physical accommodations. Maybe you are unable to actually get to court and you're requesting a Zoom hearing. Maybe you have a hearing difficulty and you need sign language interpretation. Or maybe you have vision difficulties and you need digital audio readings. Regardless of what your accommodation is, this is what you would currently do to request those. You would go online to the Massachusetts Trial Court website and download the reasonable request for accommodations, a PDF form. You would then fill in the PDF form, sign it, find out who to deliver it to, and take it to the court. But what if you are unable to fill in the PDF and sign it? Perhaps you have a cognitive impairment, making this PDF, which is rather busy, difficult to read and fill in. Perhaps you need text-to-speech software, which the PDF does not allow for, or you cannot physically sign it. Now let's imagine you need to find out who to deliver it to, but the coordinator directory link at the bottom of the form is broken. Now imagine you need to take it to court, but that is the accommodation you are seeking, physical access. No matter what your issue is, what I have worked on this semester is transforming that PDF into a legal innovation and technology DocAssemble interview. Unlike that original PDF, we now present users with 1 or 2 questions at a time, written in plain language, such as this: what is your full name? Unlike the original PDF on its own, this interview allows for text-to-speech software when filling in the PDF. It allows users to see individual questions instead of that busy PDF document all on its own. And it will provide next step instructions, including coordinator contact information, who to send it to. And best of all, it will be live by the end of the month. Now note, this is not e-filing. We are not actually filing the court form for the individual, but instead we're helping to make the process of filling in that form more accessible. And due to the Lit Lab's data crossover, this interview may now be incorporated into all other forms in the Suffolk Court Forms Mass Access database. This means that within the database, users can seek accommodations while filling out any of the other forms you hear about today, including housing and divorce forms. This means that users don't have to fill out the full accommodations document on its own, but can simply integrate it into the form they are already seeking to fill out. And because of our database updates, remember how I told you that that trial court PDF ends with the coordinator directory link broken, ending in a 404 page not found? I spent this semester working to collate the 170 plus coordinator contact information documents, and all the mass trial court accommodations coordinators have now been added into the database, meaning that users will be given next steps, including where to send that court form to and which coordinator to contact. The goal of this is simple. Whether integrated into an existing form or used on its own, my hope is that this would begin to impact lives. Because at the end of the day, if we can impact the life of even one individual, we have begun to change the world. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kavya Verma, and in addition to being a Lit Fellow, I'm also in the Suffolk Immigration Clinic. My project this past semester seeks to help individuals in requesting their documents from various agencies through submitting a FOIA request. The specific population my project was created keeping in mind are individuals who arrived to the US many years ago as refugees from Cambodia and Vietnam, have now lived in the US a majority of their lives and are now facing deportation. This project was designed in partnership with the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund and seeks to help these individuals identify which agencies they need to request their records from, submit that request, and receive those documents so that the lawyers and community organizations helping them fight those orders of removals can better understand their case and better identify available legal remedies and solutions. The Freedom of Information Act gives the public the right to request information from federal agencies, and the relevant federal agency in this case is the Department of Homeland Security, but there is no singular FOIA request an individual undergoing removal proceedings can submit to DHS. For example, if someone immigrated to the US, maybe took steps to naturalize, such as becoming a lawful permanent resident, otherwise known as a green card holder, and is now in removal proceedings, that individual is looking at submitting 3 to 4 different FOIA requests. Now, keeping in mind that the population this tool was designed for specifically are now around 60 years of age, many have a language barrier, many may not have reliable internet access, and many may simply be overwhelmed by the idea of having to sit behind a computer for a half hour to 2 hours just to submit one FOIA request. We tried to use legal technology and innovation to simplify the process. The first step in this process was using Q&A markup, a markup language designed for individuals with little or no coding experience, and specifically lawyers, that transforms blocks of text into question and answer sessions, similar to what a lawyer may ask a client during an intake session to identify which agencies these individuals would need to request records from. For example, you might be able to see that the first question on the left side of the screen asks how an individual entered the US, and their answer alone, whether they entered the US through an airport or a land border, can identify one agency that may have the records. As you can see on the GIF playing on the right side of the screen, these questions, there are only about 4 screening questions that really should not take a person more than 4 to 5 minutes to answer, even on their personal phone. After that, as you can see on the second image, the individual is given a bolded list of agencies that would have their records. And then below that are links to individual web pages that truly walk people through the step-by-step process of submitting FOIA requests. As I mentioned, each of these agencies has their own unique system to submitting a FOIA request that varies greatly. These FOIA request guides are truly designed to be step-by-step, as this is the really stressful process. Every single guide begins with a before you start section from things that I identified submitting these FOIA requests myself that surprised me, such as the immense time variation in the different agencies, the different documents that you may need even before you begin the FOIA request, and a reminder that if you have an upcoming date in immigration court, you can request to expedite your records. These guides then walk everyone through the process from creating an account with these websites to the final submit button, and provide examples of situations where someone can request to expedite their records, as well as how to describe a situation in which someone may qualify for a fee waiver. This tool has undergone immense feedback and review from legal experts, such as my supervisor, Professor Shaw, and Bethany Lee, the legal director at ALDEF. And I believe that not only is it legally sound, but also through peer review feedback from my peers in the Legal Innovation and Technology program, it's also easy and accessible for individuals who do not have a background in immigration, are already undergoing a stressful situation, so that they can submit their own FOIA requests. Our next hope is for this tool to go live on ALDEF's website so that we can acquire feedback from real users to improve this tool. And hopefully long-term, it will be translated into other languages so that as many people as possible can submit their FOIA requests. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Raju, and I am a Lit Fellow with Suffolk Law's Human Rights and Indigenous Peoples Clinic. I will talk about the possibilities when we get to work alongside the courts and help them develop their own online court system with tools mentioned in the previous slides by my colleagues. This year, the clinic had began working with a local tribe to help digitize the court form for users and the tribe members themselves. So I want to talk a little bit about the tribe. We have been working with the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe. The project began with receiving 21 forms, mainly which were in an Excel format. We began to prioritize the complaint form. But before we talk about that, I want to talk a little bit about the tribe and the culture. The purpose of the tribal court is to care for the Mashpee land and community in harmony with their creator and spirit of the people of the first light. For Mashpee, harmony means continuously having a mind that is together with another, which is vital to maintain the tribal stability. Mashpee was federally re-acknowledged in 2007. Tribal courts are varied as tribes themselves, ranging from legal systems that are traditional with little to no written rules to formalized rule-based systems. The Mashpee Wampanoag Tribal Court has written rules and is considered an adversary system. The tribal court is able to hear a wide range of matters to the jurisdictional scheme, which is ultimately complex. As we know, the law and the legal system itself can be very complex. As a Lit Fellow, my role was to take a few of these initial Excel forms and to help rework them and create a space online. The goal was to create a streamlined process with the initial court papers. To create the forms in a centralized, accessible online area that is efficient and user-friendly. With online forms, we provide a service that pro se users may not typically get if they're working alone or even with a lawyer. What is most exciting for the clinic and my role is that because the courts are open to our tools, we got consistent collaboration with the tribe. During our many Zoom calls, we get real-time meaningful feedback from the tribal elders community to tribal members themselves. And because the courts are so receptive and involved, we can ensure that their voices are heard and the forms are adopting to their needs as a tribe. So a little bit about the complaint form. This was the first form that we prioritized and made for the tribe. It's very similar to some of the forms you already saw by my colleagues, where we use the same tools to get the form in question that you see here. If you remember the uncontested divorce form, it's structured very similarly to create an ease for the user. It's easy to fill out with very simplified questions. This was an additional question function we added that is adaptable to the tribe. As I mentioned, the legal system is difficult to navigate. Our hope is that it becomes less complicated and a less stressful process. We focus on structured questions so that the user knows how to correctly and efficiently fill out these forms from start to end. And this was once again achievable because the court's collaboration and consistent collaboration. And then just a quick story about the collaboration. As I mentioned earlier, the tribe describes harmony as a mind that is together with another, which is essential to their tribal stability. This is something that we continuously did where we collaborated together, bringing our minds together. This role in our work with the tribe courts was a bit different and unique in the sense that we have this continuous collaboration and where they're so open to working with us. This question is one where we had several back and forths focusing on potential problems if we left it as an open-ended question versus if we left it as a multiple choice question. We ultimately settled on a drop-down option so to not overwhelm the courts themselves, but to also make sure that users have accessibility and know which departments that they could file a complaint against. This is an example of the end form. It would be packaged with next step documents that we would send to the user. Eventually, the goal is to build an e-filing system with the tribal court themselves. Because of the clinic's relationship with the tribe, we are not only creating these forms, but we are ensuring that they can be implemented. We will also work to help the tribe redraft the rules of civil procedure to incorporate language that can allow for e-signatures and eventually e-filing. It's essential to work through all the steps and the legal processes that come with implementing the tools, the legal tech tools. As mentioned, the long-term goal is to create a form bank system that can be used through an e-filing system with the court. We work closely with the tribe to ensure that the forms meet the needs of the anticipated users. We want to ensure that we can create easily accessible forms that guide the user through their process, and eventually a more streamlined system for the court. When courts opt in to utilizing and moving with the advances of legal tech, we are able to create forms and help multiple players throughout the process. Through our collaboration, our work with MASHP, this is just one example. I just want to take a moment to thank Nicole Fredericks, the director for the Human Rights and Indigenous People Clinic, and the MASHP Wampanoag Tribe for allowing us to share their complaint form.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for taking the time to be here today. My name is Regis Joseph Acosta, and I'm a student attorney with the Health Law Clinic. Our clinic focuses primarily on PCA and SSI appeals and guardianship and medical debt cases. Today, I will be discussing my journey in understanding accessibility in the virtual space. I'm a tech legal innovation technology fellow. There you go. So far today, we have discussed tools that make the legal system more accessible to people who might not have a legal background or a clear avenue to obtain legal services. Additionally, we have explored the Lit Lab's efforts to make physical spaces more accessible through the use of technology. However, one final hurdle that we will be exploring is ensuring that these technologies themselves are accessible to people who require certain accommodations. This past year, as a Lit Fellow, it was my job to check to see if our forms were compatible with different accessibility tools. I did this by conducting what are called accessibility audits. So my first step in understanding how to conduct these audits was exploring the different assistive technologies that are available. This ranges from screen readers for the seeing impaired, video closed captioning programs for the hearing impaired, and color correcting software for people who experience color blindness. Websites that are incompatible with these tools are not by any means bad or unprofessional, and failures to work alongside them are not always glaringly obvious. So let's take a moment and look at one of my favorite websites, Quantum Magazine. At first glance, you wouldn't really see any obvious compatibility issues. However, on this section of the webpage alone, there are 7 color contrast errors. And this is not meant to be a gotcha moment for Quanta by any means. It just means that someone who experiences difficulty seeing or has color blindness would have a hard time reading the text on this page, if they could even do it at all. This hurts both the user because they are unable to engage with the website, but it also hurts Quanta because they took the time to include this information and offer these features, which are now lost for some users. So as these accessibility tools become more widely available, the tech community has sought to create some type of workable standard that people who run public-facing websites can adhere to. This brings us to W3's Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG. These guidelines essentially function as a benchmark for web accessibility. Comprised of 50 criterion points, WCAG addresses the back-end features that allow people with different levels of need to interact and engage with websites. Additionally, WCAG provides each criterion point with sufficient techniques for testing success and failures. These guidelines are going to be the key point of reference when conducting accessibility audits. This means that when conducting an accessibility audit, the auditor must go through each individual criterion point and address whether the website conforms. They do this oftentimes by basically checking underneath the hood and exploring the source code of a web page. There are different ways that an audit can be conducted. WCAG provides what is called a reporting tool. This is just one way. These tools or these audits can be quite time consuming, especially if you don't have a strong background in this and don't really have a clear understanding of what to look for and where when looking at the code of a website. To address this, some companies have created automated tools to assist with conducting audits. This past semester, I used Wave by WebAIM. It's a Google plugin that essentially scans a web page and identifies different criterion points that are found within that page. It also highlights any errors that might limit or affect a website's ability to conform with WCAG, and also details any features that allow that site to meet WCAG standards. These automated tools are great for obtaining a baseline of where a website is at. However, they don't necessarily go into the amount of detail that you would need to conduct a fully fledged audit. So let's just take a moment and explore what it was like for me to conduct an audit this past year. So this here is our affidavit of indigency form. And my job was to grab 3 random pages from this interview and see if it met WCAG standards. I did this by just first running that Wave plugin. This was really helpful because in identifying errors, alerts, and features, it also cited back to the relevant criterion points in WCAG. This then allowed me to create a list in a spreadsheet of all 50 criterion points. I then marked if the criterion point was checked in Wave and whether or not our web page was compliant. There are times where Wave did not address a criterion point, and it then became my job to identify whether it was because that point was irrelevant to the function of our website, or if it was the result of a gap in Wave's programming. After going through all 50 criterion points, I then compiled a report to evaluate if our interviews met WCAG standards. So in reflecting on what it took for me to be able to confidently and comfortably conduct these audits, I realized that it required a base of knowledge that was kind of hard to get to. In essence, these accessibility audits were inaccessible themselves. So it then became my goal to create educational aids for future Lit Fellows, which would then allow them to be able to more quickly understand what it takes to conduct these audits. I did this by identifying all the criterion points within WCAG and just provide explanations of when users would be interacting with them and tools that the auditor could use to test for success. By the end, this document was 150 pages long, and I will be the first to admit it is very boring to read. You could also say it's pretty inaccessible. So what I did was try to think of a more engaging and dynamic tool that could be used for future Lit Fellows. Consequently, I created a web page that identified some key criterion points that an auditor would be likely to come across and showed what it looked like for a website to be both conforming and non-conforming. I then provided some examples of what it would look like for them to go into the source code of this specific web page to identify these criterion points. My goal and my hope was that these tools would not only allow future Lit Fellows to be able to more quickly understand how to conduct these audits, but to also highlight the importance of accessibility in virtual spaces. Because whether it is legal services, courtrooms, or the internet, a person's circumstance should not determine their access to resources or to spaces. Thank you.
So I'd just like to have another round of applause for all the students and their hard work. And here's something you don't hear often. We're running ahead of schedule, so you can just keep that clapping up for maybe 10, 15 minutes. So it's not as obvious to the people in this room, but we are also simulcasting this event as a hybrid event. And so we have not quite as many people, but roughly as many people online watching. So to make sure that we don't get out of sync, we're going to try to keep to the schedule. And we had built actually the schedule, nice wiggle room to allow us to do that, which means you guys now have until 10:30 to go to the bathroom, have some more coffee, eat some more food, talk to each other, and then we'll be back here and we'll keep going.